Matt was a former Marine captain who was in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's a former State Department official who resigned in protest from his post in Afghanistan over U.S. strategic policy. Prior to his assignment in let's give him a hand of applause for that right there. Prior to Afghanistan, he served in Iraq, first in 2004 and 5 in Salah al-Din province with the State Department Reconstruction and Governance team. And then in 2006 and 7 in Anbar province as a Marine Corps company commander. He's a member of the VFP Advisory Board, and I am proud to say he has been on Veterans for Peace delegations with myself and others to Standing Rock, Okinawa, and Palestine. I love this guy, Matt Ho.
It's a great pleasure to be here in front of so many people who have inspired me, who've given me courage over the last 9 or 10 years. I remember being at Arlington Cemetery crying at the graves of friends of mine 10 years ago, friends who have been killed for no purpose in Iraq. And it's very hard for me to know that we are still killing people, killing men, women, and children 10 years later. I can't believe that we're still doing it. But it should be no surprise. You know, we're standing here in front of Lincoln Memorial, and as may have been said or will be said at some other point, it's 95 years to the day that the Lincoln Memorial was dedicated. What gets left out about that conversation a lot was that at that point in 1922, the KKK was at the height of its power. 4.5 million Americans were part of the KKK. The Great Migration was underway. The Great Migration, as I was taught, was African Americans looking for work. The reality was African Americans as refugees fleeing from the greatest terrorism the world has probably ever seen. And that occurred when this monument was built. So we should not be surprised, or I should not be surprised, that the killing still goes on. I can see the Capitol building from here. And every foreign visitor who comes, the great temple of democracy, the great temple of liberty. We tell them about the Statue of Freedom that's on top of it. We leave out that temple of democracy, that temple of liberty was built by slaves. We make it a great point to talk about the Statue of Freedom, how nothing in Washington, D.C., no building can be higher than that Statue of Freedom. But that's only in Washington, D.C. If you go across the river, if you go out Route 66, if you go up the Baltimore-Washington highway, there are certainly plenty of buildings that are much higher than the Statue of Freedom. And they all bear the names Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop, Booz Allen. They all help to make Washington, D.C. and its suburbs have 7 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the country. We should have no surprise about any of this. It's just not the Pentagon, that racket, that unholy building over there, that mafia right? That building that exists solely for organized murder. It is not just them. It is all these tall buildings with these names on them that all tower over the Statue of Freedom that is on top of the building built by slaves, that provide all these high-paying jobs for all these former colonels and sergeants, that allow this to be by far the wealthiest part of our country. And why is that possible? It's possible because of the killing. Because if it was not for those Afghans, those Iraqis, those Libyans, those Pakistanis, those Somalis, those Syrians, and those Yemenis that we kill every day, none of those buildings and none of those salaries would be possible. And so what I propose, because that obviously is what makes America great, those salaries and those tall buildings, I propose that going forward, the day after Memorial Day, we have an alternate Memorial Day. We have an alternate Memorial Day to remember those men, women, and children who every day, including today, are being killed, are being ripped apart, are being burned alive by our bombs. All so that this area here can be the wealthiest part of our country. So that people like me can leave the military and have high-paying jobs in the defense industry or in the intelligence industry. You can tell there's obviously a lot of anger I have about all this. You know, of course, there's no separating the wars at home from the wars abroad, right? There's no coincidence that the day that Donald Trump announced the largest weapon sale in the history of mankind to the most repressive regime in the world, of course, that the largest reduction in health care and food assistance was also announced. That's not a coincidence. So on that alternate Memorial Day, I also propose that we recognize those who are victimized by our wars at home. Those who have died at home, here, dying for America's greatness here. Those first people, those African Americans, those Asian Americans who helped build the West or who were interned, our brothers and sisters from south of our border, and of course, those who will die from not having the health care they need. But as I said, it's been 10 years since I came home from Iraq that time and cried at the graves of my friends. And still we're killing, still the money is being made. And it's, as I said, it's hard to believe, but it still goes on. But anyway, I want to start this as I began it, though, by saying thank you all for being here, and thank you for the inspiration so many who I see here have provided me, so many who give me courage, so many who have shown me the right way to conduct myself and to lead my life. I see so many of your faces in front of me, including one standing right to my left. So thank you all very much.
Well, thank you very much, Matt Ho.